Hello, and welcome to Addicted to Lacrosse. This is Season 5, Episode number 7. Today is Sunday, January the 28th, 2018. My name is Graham Parrow. With me, as always, are Tyler Fitch and Melissa Daphne. We've got some fun stuff to talk about this week. Some news about some interesting goings-on in Calgary and Saskatoon, and the road in between those two. A bunch of games to talk about, well, 4 of them. And what else? Well, I guess we have we have our predictions as well, and predictions went pretty darn well this week for all of us, so that'll be fun. So I guess we will start off with the Calgary stuff. And as many of you probably know already, the deal was that a fan by the name of Kelvin, and I believe his name is Kelvin, dresses up as the Hulk in Saskatoon and is, I don't want to say an unofficial mascot, but that's the way Calgary kind of referred to him. But he's pretty popular in Saskatchewan, and so he or others were arranging a road trip to Calgary to watch the Rush play the Roughnecks this past weekend, as it's the second time they've done this. They did this once last year as well. Now, last year, the Hulk has his mask, and he had the big Hulk hands, and that was it. This year, he's got the whole muscle suit and some sort of extra stuff. And so this was a big deal. They're bringing 4 buses full of people, and I think there's like at least 200 or 300 people going from Saskatchewan. And at some point, the Roughnecks said, "No, you can't. Not that you can't bring people, but you can't wear the Hulk costume because it's not safe. Because what if you can't see very well and you fall down the stairs, or you step on people or knock people over or whatever? So there's a safety issue. So you can't wear the Hulk outfit." Oh, and by the way, everybody, it's Star Wars night, so we want you all to dress up as Darth Vader and stormtroopers and stuff, and bring lightsabers and stuff. So clearly, there's some safety and not safe. Like, this is not a safety issue, really. So a lot of people got behind the Hulk and said this is silly. The team got behind them, and they decided they were going to put a crest on the Rush players' jerseys with a little fist, and it says Hulk or Rush Hulk or something like that. And then not long after that, the team announced, yeah, we're not going to wear the patch on the jerseys because the league said no. And as it turned out, and this is something that Evan Schemenauer came up with, or was able to confirm, and I'll just read his tweet verbatim. "Confirmed with an independent source that the Roughnecks launched a complaint to the league this afternoon regarding the Rush Hulk logo, and the league agreed." As if the PR for this game couldn't get any worse. So the Roughnecks originally said that it was the Saddle Dome people that had the problem, not the Roughnecks themselves. But then the Roughnecks went and complained to the league about this patch. And so he went to the game. All of the buses arrived. They all had people. They had people painting faces on the buses, and I'm sure there were more than one green-faced Hulk there. And they had noisemakers and the whole deal. And as far as I know, everything went fine. They got to watch their team win, so I'm sure they were happy, and it was a much nicer bus ride than if they had lost on the way home, that is. And as far as I know, there were no issues with the Hulk himself. So I don't know if there's going to be any repercussions out of that, other than the fact that an awful lot of people were shaking their head at the Roughnecks going, "Why are you fighting this? What's the problem here? He's bringing 200, 300 people to your game. They're not trying to start stuff. They're not trying to fight with people. It's a bunch of people out having a good time." And I mean, when they were there last year, he was in the corridors and the concourse area. He was getting his picture taken with Roughnecks fans and with kids and this kind of stuff. There were no fights. There were no issues. There weren't likely going to be. So I really don't know what the issue was that the Roughnecks had with this. Did you guys hear much about this?
No. Somehow I missed this because I just don't watch my lacrosse Twitter that frequently until game times. But when you say, "Oh, the Roughnecks said it was the Saddle Dome people," like, yeah, you're the same people. Since the Flames took like ownership of the team, and the Flames run the arena. Like, it's the same people. That's silly. Trying to pass the buck. I can generally see through that. I imagine there's some legal structure where they're not the same people, but they're the same people. So that's screwy. Especially when you say, please come in your Star Wars costume, but not your Hulk costume. It's like, that's pathetic. Totally one-sided, trying to stir the pot. I don't know. What do you think, Melissa?
I think this was absolutely ridiculous. And, we want the league to get news, but we don't need to be on Deadspin and some of the other bigger sites for goofy things like this. As is already pointed out, you're citing security issues and safety issues, and yet you want other fans to dress up. So, because they were citing, he won't know the arena, and so he might trip or have issues. Oh, no, it's the same if you're in a Star Wars costume. I'm sorry. You could say, well, it's because it's Star Wars night, and we want you in a Star Wars costume, not a Marvel costume. Okay, then say that. It was silly, and it wasn't like he was going to distract that much. If anything, it fired up Edmonton, and Edmonton's, and Graham's going to get to this later, it is going to fire up the Rush fans, the Saskatoon fans, and the players much more. And so they definitely had a grudge coming in that might not have been there otherwise. I've done a few road trips. Yeah, you get some rivalry going. Having the other fans there fires up your fans. It's not necessarily a bad thing. And it doesn't matter if they're in costume. You're still going to get the same result. Yes, there are some areas that maybe there's some bigger issues. I mean, when I told my husband about this, he's like, wait, is Calgary really that dangerous for other fans that you can't go dressed in your gear? That's the message that actually is coming across, because there are some places that fans in the wrong jersey have been beat up. That was the impression he got when he didn't know any of the whole story. He just heard about the Hulk fan not being able to come and why. And he took it a completely different way. That's not an association I think you want, Calgary. So you need to be careful with that.
I've been to Calgary twice in a stealth jersey. They were fine. Nobody cared. They were happy somebody made the trip. It was a playoff game, like really, really mattered, and they didn't care. And the stealth won, and nobody cared. Stealth lost one, nobody cared. It was just everybody's happy to watch the game.
Yeah, and maybe with lacrosse, we're just a little different than some other sports. But yeah, it was silly. And all it did was bring the wrong kind of attention, create the wrong impression. And it did. It seemed like Calgary was just trying to pass the buck. If you would have been straightforward and said exactly why, instead of using phrases like, oh, we're worried about his safety. Well, no, you're not, because you're having Star Wars night. And you're encouraging people to dress up, including masks. I mean, they showed Calgary Roughneck fan in a Chewbacca mask several times. Did you make him take his mask off before he went up or down the stairs? I seriously doubt it. So, yeah.
The best comment on Deadspin is, do they not allow blind people in? Which is debatable about a blind person enjoying a lacrosse game. But that's the theory. It's like, where's their accessibility? Like, oh my God, there's a fire. I can't take my mask off and look around. It's ridiculous.
The funny thing is, there's one part that I missed, which I'll get to in a second, but the guy who plays Rush Hulk is a firefighter. And so he's going into unusual buildings or unfamiliar buildings with a big mask on and carrying 100 pounds of gear all the time. That's his job. And he also participates in these like firefighter competitions where he has to climb 8 flights of stairs in full gear carrying a 100-pound hose or something like this. That's what he does. So I'm pretty sure the stairs at the Saddle Dome are not going to be a big safety issue for him.
I think the Roughnecks lost this incident.
The one part that I missed, and I mentioned at the beginning that they said, no, you can't come. They did change their minds later and say you can come as long as you don't act like a mascot and you stay in your seat. So they didn't want him running up and down the stairs and through the concourse with a big Rush flag or something like that. You can stay in your seat, you can clap, you can do whatever, but don't be acting like a mascot officially or unofficially. So he ended up, like I said, he ended up going. As far as I know, he had the costume on and everything was fine. I haven't heard about any negative repercussions from that. But yeah, it's just a kind of a dark stain on the league. Not good for the Roughnecks. I saw a lot of Roughnecks fans on Twitter going, I'm the biggest Roughnecks fan around, but this is a terrible decision, and I hope they change their minds.
It's silly even classifying him as an unofficial mascot. I mean, we have Spike and Voodoo, and we had Ronan before he decided to move back to Oregon. You know, they would dress up whether we went on road trips or we were in stadium. And while they were associated with the Mammoth, they were on screen constantly. They wouldn't have considered themselves unofficial mascots. They just thought it was awesome to do that to support the team. I don't think Kelvin associates himself as an unofficial mascot. I think he just gets a kick out of doing it. And some people, by putting on those masks, it makes them an extrovert. And so they have more fun. More power to him. Like, you got to be kidding me. This is just the silliest thing. I don't understand.
They were even talking about, okay, well, next year when we organize our road trip, maybe we won't go to Calgary where our money isn't appreciated. We'll make it a longer trip, and we'll go to Vancouver, or we'll fly to Toronto or something like that. So
come to Colorado. We love it.
I'm sure it would go over very well in Colorado. That'd be fun. All right, so I guess we will move on. Melissa, you mentioned something about Jake Elliott. What was that all about?
Oh, it was just amusing because I forget who his counterpart on the broadcast was, but they had made a comment about the Hulk costume, and Jake Elliott was like, "Oh, don't even go there. We're not talking about that. Don't throw me under the bus like this." So it was just kind of amusing because, you know, you can tell it's a touchy subject that they didn't want to broach it, which is, hey, this is part of why we liked having our podcast, because we're not bound by some of that stuff. But it was amusing because they were like, oh, yeah, we're not even going near this. We're not voicing any opinion, but you could definitely tell they thought it was kind of stupid, too. So, yeah, it was amusing. I want to say it was in the second quarter of the game in the broadcast.
Yep. We can probably infer their opinion of it, but we can't just truly say that because they didn't say it. So we don't know what they're thinking. All
right, games of the week. There were 4 of them, and I'll just quickly go over the scores. Colorado beat Vancouver 12-11 in a close one. Saskatchewan beat Calgary in overtime 13-12, obviously a close one. Georgia beat Vancouver on Saturday night 16-12 in what ended up being not terribly close, but it was for the most part. And the other game was not close in the slightest, and that was Toronto over New England 21-9. Okay, awesome and not awesome. Melissa, why don't you start us off?
Oh, okay. Let me scroll down my notes. So I actually want to say awesome to the stealth. When I first saw the score, I had that wonder whether or not did the Mammoth just play that bad? Did the stealth play that good? And I gotta say, the stealth really stepped up. They were looking really good. I was very impressed. I'll be curious to hear what Tyler has to say about it, but I thought they played very well. The Mammoth definitely played a little better. It was interesting because one of my friends has said this Mammoth team is really looking like the team of old. They were really excited. And so then when I saw the score, I was like, oh, well, maybe they're not playing as good. No, both teams played really well. So it was really awesome for that. What about you, Tyler?
Yeah, the thing I will focus on for Friday's game is the stealth secondary scoring. People like Tony Malcolm had his best game as a stealth. Cody Jackson got in a game, played. Casey, thank you. Casey Jackson got in, and he got a goal. Goodwin came up and scored. James Ray had a goal or two. And it's people who haven't been scoring regularly for the stealth. Both Logan Schuss and Joel McCready were out. I know McCready was serving his suspension from his fight back in the Toronto game. I don't know why Schuss missed another game, but that's 2 this year, and that's a whole other pain point. But you take those two players out of the game, and I think Saturday night they both took about 20 shots combined, like more than 20 shots combined. And everybody else started getting looks, and it was a balanced offense, and the Stealth looked really good. I feel that the Mammoth maybe didn't quite perform as well as they have in other games, but the Stealth challenged them and didn't let the Mammoth do what they wanted. And they had a chance in that game. It was a great close battle. Really enjoyed it, but I was really happy to see Tony Malcolm and the others have such a great performance on Friday night when the Stealth needed them to. Graham, let's hear an awesome from you.
All right. I actually was going to list Vancouver under my awesome, and then I thought, how do you list a team that lost twice as awesome? And maybe awesome isn't the right term, but they did play very well, considering their start of the season. They played really well against Colorado, minus Logan Schuss. So if he had been there, we might have seen quite a different outcome, considering he scored, he picked up 8 points on Saturday night. But it was a close game against the Swarm as well. So kudos to the Stealth for playing 2 good games, even though they ended up as an 0-2 on the score sheet. My actual awesome, I will start with the fact that 3 out of the 4 games were really close and really exciting. I didn't get to see all of the games because I was at the Rock game. So by the time I got home from that, the Calgary-Saskatchewan game was in the second half. And by the time that was done, because I couldn't actually turn that one off because it was too exciting. And by the time I was able to turn that one off, the Georgia-Vancouver game was mostly over. I think it was at least in the third quarter. So I didn't see the first half of either of those 2 games. But Vancouver, Colorado was back and forth and could easily have gone either way. Calgary and Saskatchewan obviously went to overtime. Georgia, Vancouver was close for most of the game. The Swarms, pulled off a 6 in a row early in the fourth, and that seemed to put it away until the Stealth scored 3 within about a minute and a half, and they were right back in it. They only needed 3 in the last 4 or 5 minutes, and this is lacrosse. We've seen it. And given the comeback that we saw Buffalo make last weekend, we all knew that it was possible. And so even the fact that they lost by 3 lost by 4 is misleading as to how close the game was. So the fact that all 3 of those were really exciting and came right down to the wire was pretty awesome. And of course, the Toronto game was nothing like that at all, but I guess I'll get to that later. Melissa, you're next.
All right, so I'm going to stick with the Stealth Mammoth game. I was really impressed with both goalies. I know Tyler has said that the Stealth were really struggling with their goalie situation, but Eric Penny looked really good. I was really impressed with him in net. Ward was making some amazing stops. I mean, both goalies are facing some really talented offensive players. The Mammoth had really good ball movement. It was just, like you said, it was a really fun game to watch. It was definitely back and forth. It was aggressive. It was just one of those games that you really want to bring somebody new to, for one thing, because it is exciting, but the players just looked really good. I was really happy with both teams. So yeah, that's my final awesome on that game. What about you, Tyler?
For me, I'm going to switch over to the Toronto game, and I don't know where to put this in awesome or not awesome. It's more like a today I learned thing. Today I learned, or this Saturday I learned, that the crease rule for an offensive player being in the crease doesn't apply on an own goal. The Black Wolves came down on a rush, got a shot off, kind of squeaked, started rolling around and came off of Rose's pads, and it got kicked in, I think, by Billy Hafstrauser. And it was a goal because the ball's in the net. But then you realize, by the time that happened, the Black Wolves player had been running in. He kind of he stayed out of the crease, and then he saw a shot rebound. He's like, screw it, I'm not going to try that hard. And he put a foot in the crease. So he was in the crease, and he wasn't back out of the crease clearly. And then there ended up being, that didn't matter. Because the defense scored the goal, it didn't matter that there was a player in the crease at all, is how it was explained, which surprised me. And I had never heard that before. And it was something I will now file away for the future, because it doesn't come up very often, but it happened there. And I was like, wow, Like, I think, darn it, they got a breakaway and they ended up being an own goal. They're gonna pull it away because the guy was in the crease. And nope, not in that situation.
Interesting.
Sure.
I was at that game and I saw that happen, and we were not given the explanation other than the goal counted. When they showed the replay, it looked as if the shooter stepped into the crease and then got out in time, but there was another Black Wolves player either behind the net or to the right or somewhere else that may have also been in the crease or just had his toe in the crease. And so we thought, okay, well, the first guy, it looks like he got out in time, but the second guy I don't think did, so it should be no goal. And they just came back and said we got a good goal. We didn't hear the explanation, so this is the first time I'm hearing that. So that's really interesting.
Brian Shanahan talked about it a little bit more, and I think he said even like Brian Lemon was like texting him during the game explaining it because it was so kind of obscure. Melissa, go ahead.
Yeah, I can't say that I've ever heard that rule either. So this is one of the things I really like about so many of the former players getting involved is we're getting a lot more understanding and explanation of some of these kind of things that might get lost. I know with the Mammoth South game, having we had John Grant Jr. on the bench and Gallant and Teddy Jenner in the booth. It provides so much insight, and it's really educational listening to them, and I really love that. So I definitely not heard about that rule either.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else to add with that, Tyler?
No. It's Graham's turn again.
All right. What was my next one? Christian Del Bianco. Second half of the Rush and the Roughnecks game. Like I said, I didn't see the first half. It looked as if Frank Giuliano was in for about 11 minutes and allowed a bunch of goals, and they pulled him and put Del Bianco in. And in the second half, he was just outstanding. He played an excellent game. He only allowed 2 goals in the entire second half, gave the Roughnecks obviously the opportunity to come back in that one. They were down by 6, I believe. They might have been down by 6 a couple of times and came right back to score it and send it to overtime. And it just looked like a repeat of the Bandits game over the Rush. And I remember thinking these Rush fans are going to really not enjoy that bus ride home if they lose this one overtime or lose it late. So luckily for them, they came back. But Del Bianco looked really good. I did see a tweet from somebody saying this is really the first time we're seeing the NLL Del Bianco look like the junior Del Bianco. And I've heard a lot of people talk about how he's just been amazing in junior. I don't know if it was junior A or junior B or junior something else. But a lot of people have said, yeah, he's going to be a star in this league someday, and it may take a year and it may take 3 or 4, but he will be a star. And we're sort of seeing we've seen bits of pieces here and there of him playing really well, but this was for the whole half. He was just great. So yeah, kudos to Mr. Del Bianco for that performance. Melissa, what's next?
Funny enough, I kind of had a similar thought, so we'll just kind of touch on that and then move on to my next one because, yeah, Giuliano was just a sieve. He was letting in shots left and right. So, but then Del Bianco definitely was struggling a little bit in the first half too. So he really pulled it together that second half and was making some amazing stops. But since you already touched on that in a little more detail, I'll move on. My next awesome will go with Dane Doby taking the record for the Roughnecks all-time points leader from Schattler. So that was kind of a big deal. And it's always fun to watch those records happen in real time. So I will say Dane Doby.
It's nice that Schattler was there to see it too.
Yeah, it's so kind of Doby to wait until Schattler was there to like hand it over.
That's got to be a weird feeling as a player to have a record, literally watch it go away.
Yep. Okay. I'm going to stick with Jeff Schattler and say his return to Calgary was a successful one and a good one for him. He only had 2 goals and an assist, but I think they were timely goals. His first one was after Dane Doby had scored to get Calgary on the board. Maybe they could have got a little run from that. And he's like, nope, shut it down. I'm going to get a goal. And another one in the first half. But like he had a good outing. And I think he was probably pretty amped up to play in Calgary again. My favorite part was down above the penalty box. There was a fan totally in the 77 jersey who just had duct tape over his Shatler on his jersey. It would have been even better if you had taken Sharpie and written Courier on it. But it was pretty funny. Like, yes, this jersey's nice, and I'm like, but not that guy, not tonight. But yeah, Shatler came in, had a couple good games, a couple good goals, and yeah, I don't know, it stuck out to me from when I was watching that game. Graham, what do you got?
All right, I guess I'll go for the obvious and just say The Rock. We're awesome. And as a Rock fan, this is might be a little self-serving, I guess, and also the fact that I wrote an article on my blog about it today, and I'm just going to sort of redirect everybody to over there, nlchatter.com. So I'm not going to read the whole thing or go over all of it in detail, but I'll just kind of summarize it and just say all parts of the team were working. The offense was obviously clicking. Tom Schreiber, it's like he's an early candidate for MVP, not just because he's scoring all these goals, but he's working really hard. He's setting picks. He's digging into the corners. He's doing all the hard work, as well as scoring the goals, making some amazing passes to other guys when they're open. He just does it all. Adam Jones is looking really good. He's looking a lot more like the Colorado Jones than the Saskatchewan one. Nick Rose had a great game. He actually let in a couple of sort of soft goals in the first quarter, first half, but then just shut the door and made some amazing saves in the second half. The Rock defense managed to hold Sean Evans to no goals and a couple of assists. I think he had 3 assists. So they were really good. He was very frustrated. It was a clean game, which you don't always see when a team is losing by 12. But there were only 2 penalties in the whole game.
Kevin Ross was not a fan of that. He sent out a tweet of like, it's not the NL I remember. Like, you get a garbage time game like that and there's only 2 penalties. What's going on? And
Sean Evans is in it.
Yeah.
He's on the losing end. Yeah, that was a bit surprising. That's true enough. But yeah, so that was surprising. But just like I said, all aspects of the Rock team were awesome on Saturday night. Melissa.
All right. I'm going to say my next awesome was definitely Dobie's flying leap goal to tie the game with 58 seconds left. One, it was definitely a crucial goal, but he definitely did it with style. When we had Brian Langtree, that always made the game exciting because he just would sacrifice his body in front of the goal. And you don't see as many players, I feel like, do that anymore, just those really dangerous leaps. And so just that it was a crucial goal and he made it exciting visually. That was definitely awesome. What about you, Tyler?
Yeah, that goal was awesome. The way the timing of the games happened, Rush blowing out the Roughnecks in the first half. And halftime, I just turned it off because the South game was starting. I cared more about that. And then Jake and Brad say it's like 12-11 in Calgary. I was like, what's going on here? So as soon as halftime happens, kick it back over to halftime of the South game happens, kick it back over to this game. And I watched like the last 2-3 minutes of regulation. And it was that breakaway for the Mammoth. Don't remember who had the Roughnecks. Don't remember who had the ball initially, comes down, feeds it over to Curtis Manu. He makes a hard catch, and then he makes a pass that's tough, and Dobie had to reach up and like pull the ball out of the air, and then he's flying, throws a fake in the air, and then comes back over the shoulder. It was just like you said, Melissa, a great visual goal. It was just incredible. When he comes off the bench like that and he's running, he's going to score the majority of the time. Anyways, as for my specific awesome stealth fans, the last 2 games in Langley haven't been great. The Toronto game was a total blowout. This game late got away from them, but the fans stick around. Like they sit through the whole game, and I'm really impressed by that. And it sucks that happens, but it's great that the fans don't leave when those games go sideways, and whatever the reason is, I'm happy to see that. So I think it's awesome that despite the outcomes of the games, the fans that are there stick around. And let's see, what's the next? Yeah, I'm going to the next home game because the Curtis Hodgson retirement jersey. So I get to go be part of that experience, and I think it's better than it has been. The first few years, I think people would have left, but somehow there's a little difference this year, and good fans there. And I'm excited to go spend some time with them. Graham, what do you got?
Well, it's interesting that over the last 4 years, we've complained a lot about Vancouver fans because there's just not enough of them. And people talk about Vancouver as being a hotbed of lacrosse all the time, and yet they can't get more than a couple thousand people out to these games. And now 2 of the last 3 shows that we've done, we've talked about how great the fans in Vancouver are because they're sticking around when you wouldn't necessarily expect them to. So there still may not be that many Stealth fans out there, but they seem pretty hardcore. So kudos to them. So my next awesome is not about any of the games themselves, but something that we mentioned a couple of shows ago, and that is the Roku, which I bought last week or 2 weeks ago, and set it up this past weekend and watched part of a game. And I'm going to list it as awesome. There were a couple of hiccups here and there, but setup was easy. The setup of the Roku itself was easy. Once that was done, I basically just searched the apps for NLL and found NLL TV, installed that, and when it came to game time, it said, go to your laptop and go to this link and type in this code. And the code was like 4 letters. It wasn't this huge long code I had to remember. So I went to the laptop, where I was already logged into NLL TV, entered that code. It said, okay, you're good to go. I went back to the Roku, and it was already logged me in, and I chose the game, and there it was. And so setup was easy. The video and audio were really good. I had some buffering issues, but my kids were playing online games at the same time. So that was probably part of it. The only drawback I found, the major one, I don't know how major it was when it did hit a buffering problem, it would just stop and you'd get the little circle thing on the screen. And then it would start up again from where it left off. And if you're watching a movie or a TV show, that's what you want. But if you're watching something live, you're now, however long that delay was, you're now that long behind live. And it didn't really occur to me that this was happening until I saw something on Twitter about, oh, what a great goal by so-and-so. And I'm looking up and it's like, he didn't score. What are you talking about? And he didn't score till about a minute later because all of the little teeny buffering issues had added up to about a minute behind. So I had to actually fast forward to get to where we were. So it wasn't a big deal. But like I said, if you're watching live sports, you probably want to just say, skip that and go back to the live thing. And if there was like a button on the remote to do that, that'd be great. But oh well. Other than that, I went to watch a bit of a game today. I only managed to watch about 5 minutes of it. But the menu is a little screwed up in that it listed, here are the games that are on live. Here are some highlight shows. Here are some full games. And I had to go to, I tried to go to a full game and say, watch this game. And it said, oh, you want to see highlights from Vancouver from 2 weeks ago? And I said, no, I don't. And so I ended up having to basically select something I didn't want and click OK and see if that was actually the thing that I wanted to watch. And so that was a little messed up. But like I said, other than that, it was clean. The video was great. And yeah, it worked really well. So kudos to the Roku people. And we don't say it often here, but kudos to the NLL TV people because that seemed pretty brain dead easy. And it's a pretty good solution. So that's my awesome. Melissa, so.
All right, we're going to stick with the Colorado. I am just having one of those nights. We're going to stick with the Roughnecks game.
Against Edmonton.
Yes. We'll talk about that in a minute. I just want to highlight, one, Curtis Dixon had 5 goals, so that's awesome. They're Superman, which they were definitely highlighting the fact that Superman on Star Wars night was having the awesome night. But Ben McIntosh's overtime goal, the way he just powered through the Roughnecks defense and just that odd angle shot that he was able to get off was just really beautiful. And that also was another awesome game to watch. That's one of those types of games, like I said with the other one, that when you bring a new fan to the game, those are the games that usually hook them, and they're like, where can I sign up for tickets? So anytime we have those kind of games, I think is a good thing. I mean, the Toronto-New England game can be fun if you're on the Toronto side, but when you're a new fan, those aren't as exciting. Those aren't as enjoyable. It's these really close or back-to-back, just not even high scoring, but when you have a team that they might be 5 goals down and all of a sudden they make it up, those really exciting plays, or even just the lead keeps changing. Those are so exciting for fans to watch. And so for the new fan base we're trying to keep growing, those are the kind of games we want. So that's also awesome. But mostly Ben McIntosh's goal, because the way he powered through that defense just was awesome. What about you, Tyler?
I am, see here, all out of awesomes, but I'll quickly say that the Mammoth blackout jerseys were quite nice this year. They have blackout helmets as well, which is really cool. And the Roughnecks Star Wars jerseys, a little so-so. The BB-8 is, I don't know, it didn't look great because it's all orange, and they are not orange.
It was kind of weird.
Yeah, it wasn't going off it was a severe deviation from their branding, but it was cool that they could do those fun things. And I haven't seen what the auction prices are going for, but we'll see how bad fans want those things. Graham, any more awesomes for you?
No, I believe that's it for me in the awesome category. Melissa, you're done as well?
I am. I guess I'll go ahead and kick off our not awesomes. My first not awesome is, oh my gosh, the penalty filled third quarter between the Mammoth and the Stealth. Like, it was a pretty mellow game, and then third quarter, it seemed like every time you turned around, penalty, penalty, penalty. As Tyler was joking earlier, with something else. You get a penalty, you get a penalty. It was just 3-on-3, 4-on-4. It was just every time you turn around, there was a penalty, and it was just so undisciplined and crazy. And so that would be my not awesome, because I do get frustrated when the teams start becoming that undisciplined, even though I know for some others that makes for an exciting game. But it was just silly penalties to me, not even let's spark the team up or let's get the fans into it. It was just silly penalties. What about you, Tyler?
Yeah, I tweeted out on Friday night, I cannot remember the last time I saw legit 3-on-3 lacrosse in a game. That was unexpected, but it happened Friday night. And it ended up killing themselves because the Mammoth power play was 5 for 9, and they won by 1. Take a few of those penalties away, big difference. Anyways, that is to my actual not awesome. The Rush's last 2 second halves, the Buffalo coming back on them, and now the Calgary coming back on them when they had comfortable leads on the Rush side, and I don't know if they're coasting, like, all right, like we're good enough, like we can do it, or if there's something that teams are figuring out and adjusting. Why aren't they figuring it out in the first half or as like their initial game plan? But something weird, like I just don't remember the Rush ever having this happen to them, where people can figure them out in quotes or otherwise make in-game adjustments to close such big gaps on the Rush like this. So I don't know if there's some secret spreading amongst the league and people have figured out what to do, but if this keeps happening, it will be very interesting to see how the rest of the Rush seasons go after we all thought they were going to be 18-0 after 3 or 4 games. Graham, what do you got?
All right. Not awesome. How often Melissa still talks about the Edmonton Rush. And this is something that Melissa was talking about earlier because I added this yesterday. And I get it. We all talked about the Edmonton Rush the first season that they were in Saskatoon. I mentioned this on my blog last week that the first season that we had the New England Black Wolves, we were all calling them the Black Hawks. just because Chicago Blackhawks was a hockey team that I've been talking about my whole life, and so Blackhawks rolled off the tongue easier than Black Wolves. So I think I'm over that now. And I've kind of gotten used to Saskatchewan over the last couple of years, but Melissa doesn't seem to have gotten comfortable with that for some reason. So
it's because they still have the same team name. I want to call the Georgia Swarm the Minnesota Swarm too, but I got a note. We're gonna put this on my computer. Maybe it'll help. We're trying.
All right. So Melissa, you're next. What's your next? Not awesome?
My next not awesome. Being embarrassed on the podcast. Seriously though, yeah, it's one of those things. It's hard, and when even the announcers who are professionals slip up, yeah,
they do.
But we're gonna work on it because I'm sure the Saskatoon fans would appreciate their team being named correctly, or even Saskatchewan. We're gonna get this. It's harder for me when the team just moves and keeps the name. I can't help it, but we're gonna work on it because I don't want to offend Rush fans. But my next not awesome, just the Roughnecks the first half. Their goaltending and defense the first half was just not good. It's the same as what we've been seeing most of the season so far. They turned it around, which was awesome, but you can't even blame all of it on the goaltending because the defense was just falling apart. And so that is definitely my first not awesome or second not awesome. They just looked really rough that first half. And in this league, as New England can definitely attest, you really can't take a quarter off. You can't take a half off. You're going to really get behind the 8 ball there. And so they really need to come together really quick, or before they know it, they're going to be at the bottom of the league because Stealth are stepping it up. So what about you, Tyler? What's your next not awesome?
Speaking of Stealth, my awesome one was the Friday night offensive performance. My not awesome is Saturday, like the radical change. Their shooting was completely subpar. They had, let me get technical here, but the numbers are like 45 shots on goal, 27 shots off goal. For comparison, the Swarm had 60 shots on goal, so 15 more, or 33% more shots on goal, and they win by a couple of goals, and only 18 off. So 15 more shots on goal, 9 goals less off. Like, huge discrepancy as far as efficiency and challenging the goalie. And I don't know what caused it. I don't know that the Swarm defense was stepping out and making the Stealth take bad shots. I don't know if the Stealth are taking bad shots because they're tired from playing the night before. I don't know if they're taking less shots because the defense was on them harder. I was trying to watch in the fourth quarter to figure out what was going on because it just became so apparent. Like, the stat they were showing between quarters wasn't the score. It was shots on goal. And third quarter, the Stealth took like 5 or 7 shots, like, period. Like, they had no chance when they're putting up numbers like that. The night before, it was Stealth had 51 shots on goal, only 18 off. So again, it was more shots on goal, less shots off goal, and then Saturday it just fell apart. And I mean, they had a different lineup. I said earlier, like Schuss comes back in the lineup and McCready comes in the lineup, and that's 20 shots on goal between those two. So not half the team shots on goal, but like a significant portion, which takes away opportunities from other people. Possibly, I don't know what to make of that as well. Like, I was so happy with Tony Malcolm's game on Friday, but I said, is it because McCready's out? Like, is McCready being in hurting the Stealth offense that much where nobody else gets their shots? And then he comes in and scores 3 goals. So like, he doesn't hurt, like, in a sense, like, he scores goals. But if the whole of the team is worse because he just takes the ball and dodges constantly and the ball isn't flowing, is it good? I not my call, but it's something I've noticed that sticks out to me, and I don't necessarily like it. I think McCready's a wonderful person, but it doesn't mean he's the right player for the team, and I can't confuse those two. But it's not awesome how bad the Stealth offense was on Saturday in that second game they played for the weekend. All right, got it out. Graham, What do you got?
All right, I guess for my next one, I'm going to go back to the Rock Black Wolves game and say that the Aaron Bold and the Black Wolves defense was not awesome. I mean, as we've seen, the Rock averaged over 20 goals the past 4 games. So it's hard to say, well, that's because the goaltenders in all of those games were lousy, because that's obviously not the case. And Aaron Bold is a proven and loyal goaltender. I mean, there were a few soft shots that he probably should have stopped. I mean, if Schreiber is just rearing back, or Brett Hickey or somebody's just rearing back and firing it, you better be in place beforehand, because you're not going to have time to move. But if they shoot one and it's really not that hard of a shot and it goes in anyway, well, you probably should have stopped that one. There were a couple of cases where a Rock offensive player managed to get through everybody, and I think this happened at least once, if not twice, was standing basically right on the doorstep, right outside the crease, got the ball, and was able to do this for at least a second or two before deciding where to put the ball. And there were no defenders within 5 feet of him, and didn't get there in time, and he put it away. And pretty much no goaltender is going to stop that. When you've got Adam Jones right in front of you and he can decide, he has that much time to figure out where he's going to put the ball, he's going to score 99 times out of 100. So you certainly can't put that one on Bold. So there was a lot of defensive breakdowns that way. I mean, obviously the Rock offense played well, but in combination with that, the Black Wolves D was not that great in that game. Melissa, what's up?
All right, so kind of piggybacking on Graham's awesome, kind of the reverse with NL TV and not awesome. Their highlights are still really lacking. They're still behind. They're still not getting every game. And I understand this is time consuming, but if you're going to have a specific spot on a website dedicated to this, then people expect that this is actually going to be updated and provide the information they want. Because sometimes you just want to watch the highlights. You don't want to sit through the whole game, or you want to refresh yourself, or you just want to watch the highlights. And right now, I mean, they have 2 new games since the last time, which was week 4. They have the Georgia Swarm at the Colorado Mammoth and New England at Saskatchewan. And that's what, last week? So it's one of those things. There's more than 2 games every week. You just need to get that up. And I mean, even still, they only have 4 games total for highlights for this entire season. And we're far enough into the season that's just not acceptable. If you're not going to provide highlights, take the option off the website. That's all I can say. It's worse not having it updated and provided information, because people go there expecting it. We're trying to get new fans into this. And so some of those fans, that's what they want to see. Or what I used to do when I wanted to try and get somebody excited to try and go to a game is I would pick specific highlight reels and be like, hey, watch this. This gives you an idea. I can't really do that because they're just not doing that. And so it's really frustrating for me because I can't share this stuff to try and get people to go to games like I have in the past. So that's my not awesome, my little on my soapbox. What about you, Tyler?
There's 4 games there, but I'm all out of not awesomes. So we'll go back to Graham.
All right, I have one more, and that is related to the Roku, which I mentioned before. Watching the game, I noticed, and maybe you have seen this before as well, the commercials are like twice as loud as the rest of the game. And I think I'm probably the first person to actually notice that. But
yeah,
I think I
never
tweeted
complained
that.
about that.
No, not at all. But honestly, it's the first time I've ever seen it. And holy crap, is it ever true? And I mean, not that I thought you guys were lying before, but it was blatant. It was like, oh, that's commercials are on. And I actually watched the first half of the game on the Roku, and then I watched the second half on my laptop like normal, and I paid special attention to that, and the volume did not change when I was on my laptop. So I don't know what's different. Obviously, Melissa, you don't watch the game through the Roku, you watch it through your laptop streaming on a TV, right?
Yeah, I use Chromecast to watch the games, so it's basically mirroring my computer, which could cause some of the audio that maybe it's not, but I also don't watch them live, so that also could be a factor.
So yeah, I don't know what would be different other than live versus recorded. I don't know what else would be different because I'm just watching it through Chrome on my laptop. So
yeah, I wasn't going to say anything because I thought they'd fixed it, but like for me on the stealth game on the Roku, because I started using mine as well this weekend, the commercials were super quiet. Like you would hear Jake and Brad talking, and then like there's Digby with the goal, and it was great. It was super quiet, and I was going to say just don't say anything because then they'll tweak it again. They'll turn it back up.
Yeah, the volume did seem much better this weekend with the games. Although I did have on the Mammoth game, the announcer volume actually dropped. We had to turn up the volume twice because they had gotten softer. But the commercials actually were much more level this weekend, so I had a whole lot less issue.
So what I saw was better than usual. Wow. Okay, that's it for my non-awesomes. Melissa, did you have any more?
I just kind of had a note of like, what is up with New England? But it sounds like they just kind of took the fourth quarter off. So that was kind of...
Yeah, they're still in second place. They're still like tied, but they lost a tiebreaker. Like they're 4-2, but the 2 losses aren't good. Or at least this last loss.
They in their games that they've won, they've given up 11, 9, 8, and 9 goals. And the 2 games that they've lost, they've given up 24 and 21. So when they're in the game and their defense is doing well, they have a good shot. When they're not in the game, their defense just goes away entirely, and they got slaughtered. So,
yeah, I have no clue what they're doing. Both those losses are on the road. Could be part of the factor, but I don't know. Was that Rochester that was at Rochester, or did they lose at home to Rochester?
They lost at home to Saskatchewan, and on the road at Saskatchewan, and on the road in Toronto, and they were on the road in Rochester and won.
Well, see, that's I can't try and find a pattern there.
All right, so I guess we'll move on to our predictions from last week. And like I said, these were pretty good. Tyler went 3-0, only missing the Vancouver, Georgia game.
3-1, not 3-1.
I was 3-1.
Yeah,
3-1. And Melissa and I both went 4-0, so a good week from all of us. And that puts our overall totals. Tyler is at 13-14, just about at 500. I'm just over at 16-11, and Melissa's still in the lead at 18-9. Not bad at all. And just like the last couple of weeks, I forgot to do my picks before the show started, so I will let you guys go ahead and say yours while I do mine. So, Melissa, since you're in first place, we always make you go first, so go ahead.
Yeah, I think Graham keeps forgetting because he wants to get what Tyler and I say first to influence.
I'll just listen to what you guys say, and then I'll make mine.
It does play an impact. Sometimes it's like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. But we'll go ahead and get mine in. So for the Rush at Colorado, I'm going to go with the Rush. This was definitely a tough one because the Rush are a tough team. Colorado's been playing well, especially at home. But, yeah, I want to be that positive fan, but I'm still not quite there. I'm kind of taking every win with a grain of salt. So we're going to go with the Rush, who I know are definitely playing solidly. With Calgary and Toronto, I'm going to go with Toronto. Calgary looked really good this weekend, much better than we've seen them, but I think Toronto's looking a little better. Buffalo at Rochester, I'm going to go with Rochester. And then Vancouver visiting the Rush, we're going to go ahead and go with the Rush. With the Saskatchewan having back-to-back games, that could definitely play a factor. We saw that with the Stealth. I think them flying from Vancouver down to Georgia definitely had an impact. And I feel like one of the announcers, maybe it was going from Colorado basically down to Georgia, going from Mile High down to sea level across the country. One of the announcers commented that they definitely had bad travels. I don't know if something else happened. So, but with the Rush, they're staying a little closer. again, they're going from Mile High City up, so that might influence them, but I'm still going to stick with the Rush. Vancouver looked really good this weekend, but we're going to see if this is just a fluke or if they actually are turning it around. What do you think, Tyler?
Alrighty. Back to the top of the list. I am going to go a little contrarian and say Colorado. They'll find something from those last two second halves of the Rush games to do throughout the whole game, and they can get a win against the Rush at home. That'd be a good little trick to pull off. Calgary going to Toronto. Toronto, 4 wins, averaging over 20 goals. I'm not stopping that train, and especially not having Calgary stop that train. So Toronto wins that game for me. Buffalo at Rochester is tough. They both have their moments. Rochester's had games where they scored more than 20, and they've had games where Matt Vince looks like some of the greatest Matt Vince ever. Buffalo are very hot and cold, kind of based off Alex Bouquet and what he does. But if he's hot, they can win. And I'm picking him to be hot, also because I need to pick different than Melissa if I ever want to catch up. This one's kind of one of my falls in my contrarian picks, but there's a chance of this happening. And finally, the Rush go home after playing to face a stealth team that's there waiting for them. But it's a stealth team that has moments, but I don't know when they are, and I can't predict it, them to win, because I think there's too inconsistent. They've never had the same lineup. Like, they had John Harnett go play one game on Friday, and then he's back off the healthy list. And Justin Saul was in his reserve, and all of a sudden he's not in the reserve. You never know who's going to be out there. They don't have any consistency, so they can't win a game like that in my mind. So I'm picking the Rush to win. Gran, your picks, please.
All right. A couple of these were not all that difficult, and one was. So I'm going to start with Saskatchewan, Colorado. This was a little more difficult than it might have been, say, 2 weeks ago, because the Rush just looked unstoppable, and then we found that they actually are stoppable, and they were almost stoppable twice. So if anybody can beat the Rush, Colorado is certainly one of the teams that can, but I think the Rush will be looking over a lot of game film this week, and will likely fix whatever problems they had in the second half of the last couple of games. So I'm going for the Rush in this one. Calgary, Toronto, like you said, Tyler, the smart money's on Toronto, I think, too. I don't know if they'll continue with another 20 goals, but they are really hot right now, and so we'll just ride that train. Buffalo, Rochester was a tougher one. They are on the road, and Bouquet has not looked very good on the road so far. He looks pretty good in Buffalo, but this one is in Rochester. Rochester is on a 4-game losing streak, and they're a good enough team that it's hard to fathom that they're going to lose 5 straight. But I'm going to go with Buffalo on this one. They looked pretty good against the Rush last weekend, and that was without Callum Crawford, and there was without Matthew Bennett and Mark Stainhouse as well, but I don't think they're coming back anyway. But Crawford will be back, so I'm going to go for Buffalo there. And Vancouver and Saskatchewan. Vancouver has looked good in the last few games, but like Melissa said, I'm not sure if that's just 1 or 2 games, or if they've actually turned it around and they're on their way up and just sort of got unlucky in the last couple of games and lost to both. But they are facing the Rush, and I still think the Rush are still one of the best teams, so I'm going to go for them. And so it looks like my picks, although I was going to say match Melissa's again, but they do not, because she picks Rochester and I pick Buffalo. So not both of us will go 4-0 this week. I'll just say that. And I guess that will do it. Anything else that you guys wanted to mention?
Yeah. I got the Curtis Dixon stick. Though there's some fancier versions of this. I suspect it's what he plays with. But my old stick was 15 years old, and it had a little crack in the sidewall now. I can still use it for running around with old guys. But the pocket got tweaked on it because it got wet, and then I had to mess with it. And the whole point of this is you don't have to mess with it. It just works. So it kind of treat it as an appliance. And so far I've played wall ball with it and I'm very happy, but I'm going to go play next Saturday and I'll give a more in-depth yay or nay after that experience. And then Warrior will come and start giving us money for the podcast because we feature their products. It's going to be fabulous.
Excellent.
I definitely liked my Warrior stick. That's really interesting, some of the things that they've tweaked and changed. That one is, I don't know what I think of that one yet, so I'm curious to hear your feedback.
Visually, it's like no stick you've seen. You're like, what the hell's going on there? But the reality is, it just every single one, and you're supposed to just pick it up and they work the same. And for so many people, they spend time tweaking their shooting strings to get it right. And it's like, don't worry about that. That's a waste of your time. And for me now, with 3 kids and my job, it is now a waste of my time. When I was in college, I tweaked my stick all the time because I could just sit around all afternoon and do that. But that's no longer worth it for me. So it's a kind of a different aspect. For some people, they just want the consistency of every stick. For me, I don't want to spend any time worrying about it. So like I said, it's an appliance for me now. It just works. So I'm excited to try it out for real, though.
I imagine there's a lot of lacrosse purists who look at those sticks and go, that's not a real stick. That's not the way you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to spend hours just tweaking the strings and making little changes until you get it just right. But
must be nice,
like you said,
time.
Exactly. Who's got time for that? So it's good enough for Curtis Dixon. It's probably good enough for us, I would think.
I still hate Curtis Dixon, but yes. Only because he plays for the wrong teams.
Yes, as soon as he's traded to the Stealth for a draft pick, then you'll be his biggest fan.
Though he'll never play for America. He torches America when they play field games. God, I hate that guy.
All right, well, that will do it. This has been another episode of Addicted to Lacrosse. For Tyler and Melissa, I'm Graham. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.